Hey friends, this is Daniel, and today I wanted to kind of explain why I still often use the term Wiccan. Um, if you meet me, for instance, if you met me at work or on the street or anywhere off online, if you would ask me what spiritual path I practice, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to tell you that I'm a Wiccan or I practice Wicca. I probably won't tell you I'm a Christian witch, even though that's the term that I um, prefer, simply because when I went into Christians, it becomes an issue. When I went into pagans, it becomes an issue. So it's just easier for me to say I'm Wiccan, people leave you alone, or I simply say I'm spiritual. Another reason is I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s where everything was labeled Wicca. Most of my first groups called them what they did Wicca. Most of my first initiations and dedications and eclectic groups were all Wiccan groups, or they would have called themselves Wiccan, even though they probably weren't really Wiccan. I mean, like, they wouldn't have been traditional Wiccans or anything of that nature. So I do come from that background, and so it's not like I'm not being deceptive when I say I'm that Wiccan, because for me, um, I was Wiccan for a good portion of my life, and I still consider that part of my spirituality. For me, it's just easier. When you live in a very conservative town um, in Indiana, and you live with a lot of very religious people, when you say Wiccan, they understand that you're not out to harm them. They probably think you're some good witch, or if they even use the word witch, or new agey person, and they tend to leave you alone. When you go out and say you're a Christian witch or any kind of witch, you get and people get can get very hostile. So it's very easy for me to just simply, and be honest with you, a lot of times I just try to avoid the subject because it's none of their business. But there are some kind people who want to get to know you, and they'll talk about that. And I'm very open that I go to a Christian church, stuff like that. But it's just easier sometimes. And be honest with you, with just the way the country is going, I think that I see a lot more pagans and witches who will probably who are or probably will begin to use that term Wicca again. A lot of people don't realize that because they won't remember because they were too young, the Satanic Panic of the 80s and early 90s, and it was Wicca was a protection, and we're moving into an era where religious freedom is going to be threatened. And even if you don't consider your witchcraft a religion, Wicca is a federally recognized religion, and it becomes an umbrella term. As it used to be in the 90s, Wicca was used as an umbrella term for a whole bunch of different forms of witchcraft. And it was kind of what I see it probably going to for a lot of people, at least on the outside, will be using that term more and more. Whether they want to or not, it's just a way of protecting yourself. And like I said, in a lot of areas in this country, you won't need to do that. But people like myself, who live in conservative areas, Wicca is a protection. Calling it what you do Wicca, calling yourself a Wiccan, is just a way of preventing discrimination. Witchcraft does a lot of stuff, but it doesn't pay for broken windows, as the old saying goes. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but and so like I said, in the 90s, in publicly we called ourselves Wiccans, and privately we called ourselves witches. And I see that coming back more and more. Yes, there's always going to be people who are going to proudly call themselves a witch, and I do, and I consider myself a Christian witch. But I think for my own protection, a lot of times I use the term Wiccan out in public and with other people. And a lot of times on my Facebook page, I'm moving more and more close to, when I say something, I say Wiccan opposed to witch. It's just easier, and it just helps keep things safe, if that makes any sense. So yes, I still use the term Wiccan and witch, even though it's not my preferred label, and it's something that I encourage other people to do if necessary. If you live in an area where calling yourself a witch is going to bring persecution or violence towards you, I think if that's wrong, and technically you are protected, but you know what, bad things can happen to us, and so sometimes we have to protect ourselves first, and I'm perfectly okay with that old thing, to keep silent. Sometimes we have to just not, we don't need to, people don't need to know our business. And if we do, we may have to use other words. So you may use, and other people are using tools like, I'm spiritual, or I'm a mystic, or all that stuff. Not everybody can be open and honest. I would say honest. Like, not people can be open about everything in their practice. So just be mindful of that. Many blessings, my friend.